Hi, my name is Brianna Woodson, and this is my EATS lesson plan. I chose to do the grades 2 to 6, which is ages about 6 to 10. The subject would fall under world languages and cultures, but for the CPALM standard, it's just world languages. My objective with the summative assessment is students should be able to demonstrate a comprehension of different cultures and backgrounds, and the standard, I'm not going to read out that code right there, but it is to demonstrate understanding of simple information supported by visuals through a variety of media. My faith integration comes from that verse by David that says, "I am beautifully and wonderfully made. Your works are marvelous, and my soul knows it very well." There are a few materials for this 3-day lesson plan, and that includes 3 different books that I will be using. First of all is People of the World by Nancy Lowen and Paula Skelly. The second book is Children of the World by Nicola Edwards. And the third book is A Refugee's Journey from Iraq. All 3 of these books are needed. Also for day 1, we're going to need a large mirror, and for day 1 as well, a map of the world. So the lesson essential question of my plan is, have my students displayed an understanding of different cultures through the material? My goal that by the end of the lessons, it will not just be information that I have told my students, but they will have been able to process it, think about it, and when they talk about it or discuss it with their friends or their family in the future, they will be able to have their own understanding of what cultures are. My activating strategy is using the book People of the World, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the section 4. So the acceleration and previewing part, certain vocabulary words that my students will need to know. There are 3 of them. First of all is culture, and I tried to make sure that I picked the most child-friendly definitions that I could find so that these would be easy for my students to understand. Culture is the way that people live, food, clothing, language, and celebrations, and these are all part of the culture. Race is a way of grouping people. It's usually based on skin tone, hair texture, and other ways that people look, or where a person's ancestors are from. And then identity is basically who you are as a person, in today's culture they say what you identify with, but what makes you you, and I would be approaching this from a biblical perspective. So, the teaching strategy, this is a 3-day thematic unit, and it will use 3 different books, a different book for each day, all with the objective of having students identify their different features, backgrounds, and also learn to appreciate themselves and others for who they are. One thing to note is that the student seating should be arranged in a circle to encourage discussion, and so that it's less of a lecture type setting for my students. So for day 1, we are going to use People of the World as the attention hooker for day 1 into the unit. This is a fairly large picture book. It has many pictures of different people from different countries from all around the world. And we're going to start it off by pulling up a mirror and having my students identify who they see in the mirror. So I would be encouraging my students to look in the mirror and say their name. And then turn to the students to their left and their right, and also identify who is seated next to them. Then I would go through the book, pointing to each of the pictures and also referring back to the map with where the country is located. So for example, if the book showed a picture of someone from, say, Thailand, I would show them, alright, this is what a person from Thailand looks like, and then point to the map and show them where Thailand is located. That way they also have a geographical idea of where the countries are located. If I find that one of my students is actually from one of the countries shown, I would like to ask them a few interactive questions. One, to engage them, and this ties in with my ELL students that have English as their second language. Most likely their country will be in the book. It has several countries in there. I'd ask them a few interactive questions, such as, can you describe what this place looks like? This would be assuming that they have lived there before, maybe not, and that's still fine. I can still ask them, what language do they speak? What's your favorite traditional food? What does it taste like? Can you describe it to us? And this just adds a little bit more interaction and engaging with my students. The book has a section that talks about different smiles, saying hello, different foods and cookings, going through those different sections of the books, and also interacting with my students, making sure that they are engaged throughout the whole time. For day 2, we are going to be using Children of the World. So this, we went from People of the World to Children of the World, and we're kind of narrowing it down to more specific a more specific idea for the children to be able to grasp. So this book is rather lengthy, but it goes into an amazing detail of different cultures, different foods, different ways to say things. So I would suggest that if you were to teach this, I would create a list of essential topics in case, depending on how long the class time is, in case you're getting pressed for time, you know which topics you want to cover and which ones you can kind of skim through. Each topic has several pages, so maybe there's a page from every topic that you want to cover, and if there's extra time, you can go back. When going through the different ways to say words in different languages, it's important to make sure that you know how to properly pronounce the different words so that you're giving an accurate representation of how to say it. I would also have the students repeat after you what the words are and just keep them focused and engaged throughout the lesson. And once again, if any of the students are from any of the countries mentioned, I would interact with them, ask them a few questions. Do you have this in your home? Do your parents make this for dinner? Have you been to this area before? Would you tell us a little bit more? And just keep interacting with your students. And then on day 3, I chose a very specific book of, it's called The Refugee's Journey from Iraq. And I am assuming I am speaking to an American-based classroom. And so I wanted to give my students a specific instance, a specific story that they would be able to see is different from their own, but also have them think through, well, what exactly does this mean? So today's focus is on the different backgrounds and helping students know that everyone has a different story. So for this day, it would be less hype, less interaction as the previous 2 days until the end of the lesson. So I'd read the story to the children and then take time to pause between the sections and ask children how they feel emotionally about it, ask them a few different questions. It's a pretty emotional book, but it's a really, really good story for children in this category. And after the story, I would try to facilitate a discussion by asking some of the following questions, such as the main character's name is Zainab. So how do you feel for Zainab? Do you think she was scared? What would you have done in her situation? Do you think her family made the right decision in coming to America? Do you know any refugees? How do you think we should treat refugees? These are all questions that get children thinking, but also have them give their own opinions and help them develop what they really think about these. So for ESL and ELL students, as I mentioned before, ELL students, I would try to engage them as much as possible by asking them questions about their different cultures. For ESL students, stories will be read out loud for students with reading impairments, and restless students, or those with ADHD, I would try to pick out certain activities that maybe they could help me out with. Maybe I'd ask them a few more questions or ask them to help me demonstrate something or hold the book, point to specific things, just keep them engaged so that their attention would not be wandering. So for the extended thinking strategy for day 1, the book People of the World has a few amazing questions that would be really good to assign to the students to be able to do for homework depending on what age your students are, and because their age is 6 to 10, and if they can write, or you can just ask these questions face to face. The questions are, what do all of the people in this book have in common? Name 4 things in this book that people around the world may do with their hands. Which smiles in this book are most like yours? Which smile are most unlike yours, and how are they different? So that would be for day 1. For day 2, each student would be assigned a specific dish from another country, and they will need to go home, research it, and write a brief summary on how to make it. So when I say brief, I mean brief, like a very brief summary. Again, this depends on the age of the students. We're looking at 6 to 10, which a lot of development happens around those years. But just a brief summary on how you would prepare this dish, and this will just get them more exposed to that culture and have them appreciate different foods from theirs. And then on day 3, students will draw a backpack and in bullet form write a list of things that they think refugees would need when they go to a new country. So they would draw a backpack and then, just as it said, in bullet form write a list of things that they think that refugees would need when they get to a new country. This is just going to help them think through a few things, putting themselves in the shoes of other people besides their own. And then for summarizing, I'd like to use the 4-3-2 method. 4 new things that they learned about different countries, 3 things that they would like to try, whether that's food, a place to visit, or a language to speak, 2 differences between their lives and this main character of a refugee's journey from Iraq. And then lastly, one thing that they really like about their culture that is unique. This will help them to bring it back to themselves and also appreciate their own culture and what they have been given and brought up with. So this is my EATS plan. I tried as much as possible to make sure that it focused and went back to the standard of demonstrating understanding of simple information supported by visuals through a variety of media. We have different books, we have different activities, and the students should demonstrate a comprehension of different cultures and backgrounds. This covers a pretty wide range of topics, but yeah.